Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm really excited for my guest this week. He's known a little bit in the TV world, but I want to give him a chance to kind of introduce himself. My good friend Bilal Hazziez has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks a lot, Bryan. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, let's do this. My listeners who may not know who you are, let's talk a little bit about you, kind of your history, kind of your backstory, how you kind of grew up, how you got into what you're doing now, not only the things you're doing now, the activities you have going on right now, but also your career and the things that you do there. And then we'll get, obviously it's a dad podcast, so we'll get going into your story as a dad as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, my name again is Bilal Hazziez, and I grew up in Midwest, Kansas City, always rep, moved away, come back, but it's always, home for me. And I grew up with, I don't know, just, just the ethics of, do for self and, being an asset to your community. And, that it ingrained in me and my siblings, from my parents at a very early age. And so we were very active in our community here locally as well as nationally. And, so I, like most people, went off to school, went to college, got my degree. And I immediately realized that I did not want to do what I majored in. So I made a career shift.
Gee, that doesn't happen a lot, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't happen, right? So I made a career shift, and I knew that I loved and I enjoyed helping people, and I enjoyed kind of giving back to community. And so I became a firefighter.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I became a firefighter. I absolutely loved it. I enjoy, just being with the guys and the girls at the station to just helping, the community and also the adrenaline rush. I was an athlete, in college and things like that as well too. So it was kind of fulfilling those voids, and but unfortunately, I did get injured on the job, but it also made me think about before even the injury of just, again, growing up, like my parents always had jobs, but they also did other things on the side. My father was in real estate. He was an electrician. He had an electrician business on the side, but he also worked for the city. My mother, she was very high up in managing role at AT&T, but she also do things. So all those things kind of contribute to me, looking at, entrepreneurship. And I started to look at real estate investing specifically. And I started to dive in head first with reading books and, and seminars and all these different things. And I started to go out there and tackle it and made some money, and I lost a lot of money, made some money and lost a lot more. And until I kind of took a step back, say, if I want to take this thing really seriously, I have to go out there and seek out people who are doing this stuff at a very high level. And I started to do that. And I started learning from some very, very successful people in the real estate industry. And things started to take off for me. And then as things took out for me, I was very fortunate to be able to, that same company, be able to travel around the country, every single weekend for, the last 6 years or so. Started to be on stage and, just really teaching people financial literacy and education and real estate investing and business, et cetera. And I just really enjoyed the aspect of giving back. And a lot of those concepts I never learned, growing up in school, traditional education. We always value those things, but there's a difference between traditional education and financial education.
Right.
And, and I always tell people, I spent a lot more money outside of traditional education, learning different things that I did even in my, getting my traditional education. So that need and that desire to want to be able to help educate other people in the masses, that was always something I always really, truly, wanted to do. And then next thing you know, COVID happens and shut the industry, doing seminars kind of down. And we started to pick back up after COVID a little bit, but really, are we still really after COVID,
Right.
And so things wasn't, the way they used to be. So migrated back into just being a real estate investor full time. I've always still invested, even when I was traveling, but never stopped. So then it was just, going back full time, became, I was a realtor as well, still am, and, started to do a lot more on that side as well. And, started doing things on high end luxury real estate as well. And I don't know, just really enjoy, just the aspects of real estate and everything that goes along with it, and again, it goes back to helping people, helping the community, developing things, etc. So um, I was married as well. Actually, was married twice, and the first time was very, very short. It was like I was like 22, I think, when I got married, and just for a couple of months, realized that it wasn't a good fit. We're still real good friends to this day. And then I end up meeting my children's mother. We got married and still relatively young, and we were married for 10 years. And then end up going through a divorce and everything like that. And meeting different people, after the divorce, and knowing I still wanted to obviously get married. Like marriage was like always like a center focus for me growing up in our family dynamics. My father was married for 50 plus years before my father recently passed, and so that dynamic was something that was really like dear to our heart. And but also one of the things that I learned too was like being a father. Like a father was something that was so important for me. And like growing up, my dad was and still is to this day my hero. And I try not to get too emotional when I talk, because it's still, he's passed 2 years ago, but it still hits you. And but he was my hero. He attended just about all of my sporting events. He was there taking me to practice, um, you know video recording my football games in high school, like all those different things, taking me and my siblings and my best friends and all the camping and horseback riding, a lot of those things that a lot of my peers didn't get a chance to, didn't have. I have a lot of friends who didn't have their father in their life, or had friends who didn't experience some of the things that we did, of course, traveling and camping and things like that, coming from the inner city. So I always knew that when I become a father, I wanted to be very, 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 very much hands-on like my dad. And I'm very been fortunate, real estate has provided that lifestyle to be able to be hands-on, where I don't necessarily, I can drop my children off to school every single morning.
Right.
I pick them up, I'm at their games and all that stuff. When I was traveling, it kind of hurted me when I would miss some of the games, because a lot of the games sometimes would be on the weekend and I'd be traveling. But when I come back home, I'm right there. And but but yeah, he instilled that in me to want to be a great father, and that's a badge that I hold very high of being a good dad.
Yeah. How old are your kids now?
My children are a son, Yusuf, and a daughter, Zaina. My son is 14, my daughter's 17. And I got married, on the show, TV show, and my lovely wife, she's wanting to have more children as well. So we're looking at that dynamic, and of being a father again, to the third power, maybe even fourth. So we'll see.
Oh, that's cool. Well, you're right in the battle of teenage years. I mean, that's a struggle in itself for parents. I always talk about it on my show that our kids look up to us when they're younger as like their heroes, their idols. They want to do everything that we do, and then when they hit those teenage years, they want nothing to do with mom and dad. They want to be independent. This is where they're really discovering who they are as people, right? Yeah. And then I always try to tell some of the dads that I coach, I try to tell them, hey, look, just hang on, just be there for them as much as possible, because trust me, when they hit those 18, 19-year-old ages, they start to come back. And I have two boys. They're 23, and my youngest will about to be 21. And they're two of my best friends now. And trust me, there was those roads that we went down that were a struggle. For you being an entrepreneur, I know that could be hard too. As an entrepreneur, you're trying to really build a business and build a legacy for your family and for your kids. How did you balance that between doing that and then also trying to be as involved as you said you wanted to be for your kids? How did you balance that as a parent?
That's a great question. It's a huge balance. One, you have to figure out like, why is it that you want to do what you want to do? Like, being an entrepreneur, like, what's your why, right? And for me, like, the center of my why is my family life. My wife now, to my children, the future children. And I'm talking generations. And so that was something that's huge. So I knew that, okay, I would have to sacrifice some things because I have to put time into that. Right? When you start a business or when you grow and develop a business, like, that thing can become your baby, right? And like a real baby, like, it needs your attention and all that. But at the same time, that you have family like that, you also have to attend to as well. And not only was, being a business owner and, you have family, but I also was an imam and still am. But an imam is like a kind of like a reverend or a preacher over the church. So it was a lot of balls, that I was juggling, it requires a lot of your attention. And one thing that I still do to this day, every Sunday, and, it's not something that I thought of, was something that I learned from mentors that, is time blocking. And so every Sunday I kind of write down like all the things that I want to get done and accomplished that week. And then I started putting it into my calendar. And like even this conversation, like all those things are put in my calendar, and not just business related. So it's every aspect. Because I think that, when you talk to success, a lot of times people think, financially. Well, I know a lot of people who make a lot of money, but they're not happy,
right.
So it's not strictly that. It's about having, your buckets filled in multiple buckets, and for me, family, my faith, obviously business to fitness and health, so you want to have a lot of these different things. And so I make time to go to the gym, put it in my calendar, make time for my children, where it was very difficult sometimes to like shut things off. Because sometimes, electronics, your phone and all that, you could be even just a simple thing as watching TV with your children, but you're on your phone and you're looking at, where I had to like take it all the way.
Yeah.
You know what? This is the time that I'm going to spend for my children. I want to be an active father, but also I want to be present too. Where you can have dinner sometimes and everyone's on their phone. It's like,
Right.
no, I'm not doing that. We're gonna put everything away. We're gonna like, hey, how was your day? Like, what new thing did you learn about today?
Right.
And so we have these conversations and things like that around the table. And but yeah, just make a point of like just being present, whether it's a couple of hours. You think about even right now, like kids are back in school. Well, by the time they get home, they're in sports activities. It's close to 7:00 when they get home.
Right.
And then going to bed about 9:30, 10. Obviously, they're on the phone with their friends. It's like we got to get some us time too, right?
Right.
So it's time to be able to kind of put those things. We do that on our car rides as well, but just to you have to be, I think, really present in those times. So I try to be really focused when they're not around me for my business and for those other things. And then when they are around, I try to just give them my attention. Because it starts to sadden me too as I think about it. My daughter, Zaina, this is her senior year. So she's gonna be leaving the nest. So
Right.
she's applying for colleges and things like that now. And I'm like, oh man, start to get emotional. I think about her not being there at the house anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to really take advantage of the time that we have all together.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, scheduling, obviously, it's funny. Parents don't think about putting family time on the calendar or on their schedule. It's not natural to us. We just think family time just sort of happens. But the problem is it really doesn't. Things get in the way and we have other commitments that we have to fulfill. And so family time gets pushed to the side. And something that my wife and I've always been good at, my boys played the sports from the time they were 4 all the way up through high school. And I knew that as a parent, it was going to be my job to get them to the practices and to the games. So what I opted to do is I said, hey, if I've got to take them to the practices and I'm going to sit there and watch them at practice or games, I might as well get involved. So when my older son was 4 years old and he started playing baseball, I decided to coach. And so I coached both my boys all the way up through high school. And those are times that, yeah, I was a coach for them, and on the court or on the basketball court or on the field, football or baseball field, I was their coach. But it allowed me to build that bond with them as not only a coach but a dad. So that's one way that I did to be an involved parent. And not a lot of parents have that luxury, but I think just putting it on your schedule, putting family time on your schedule, even if it's, like you said, even if it's a short period of time where it's, 20 minutes or 30 minutes where you're sitting there with your kids and it's just you and them. I used to just, I'm sure you did this, but I used to have like little date nights with my boys, just me and one of my sons who just go out to dinner and we just chat, and the phones were put away and all that. So those kind of things took place. But something that my wife and I are really good about, we still do it to this day, even though our boys are grown, is we do every Sunday evening, we will go, what do you have going on this week? And we'd run through the calendar. I have this, and this. And I do the same thing. That way we know, okay, we have commitments in these areas, but where can we squeeze in family time? And where can we squeeze in one-on-one time with me and my wife, right? Our date nights or whatnot. So it's very, very important. We have meetings that we have to put on the calendar. We have podcast shows that we have to put on the calendar, right? We have personal time at the gym. We're working out with our trainer. We got to put that on the calendar. So why not put the family time on the calendar as well? Because if you don't, it's very easy to just let it slide. So
it really is. It really is. It goes back to, I remember having a friend and mentor that mentioned that, like, if you show me your calendar, then it tells you what you find that is a priority in your life, right? So if you say that, family life, or being a good dad is a priority, but it's not, you don't see it anywhere. All you see is, I got this meeting, I got this. Then it's like, where does that lie? So I made it very, very important, where I actually would fill those things in first. Like, hey, like, even, I can relate to what you said. I'm not a coach, for my son, but I'm a football guy, but he plays basketball. And I played basketball growing up, but I never played on a, actual team. But I had to make a point to learn certain aspects of the game so I can go out there and coach him certain things and drills and things like that. And those are just those one-on-one times. And same thing with my daughter in volleyball and things like that. And I just remember my father too, playing catch with me, playing football and things like that. Though he wasn't a football player, he was a boxer, but he would, just take that time to, do things like that with me. And so I think it's really, really important. And I agree with you. Same with date night. Like, we make a commitment, me and my wife, like, okay, we're going to go out, certain numbers throughout the month, and you got to plan it, and because if you don't plan it, sometimes it doesn't, a lot of times it doesn't happen. And then next thing you know, it's the compound effect. And, you look up and like, man, like this whole year went past and we didn't do this, didn't do that, and so those little things you got to make sure that you do, because it adds up.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I have to say that, your kids remember those things. They may be little events that, you weren't there for. Unfortunately, they remember those times. And as being a coach for, I just retired from coaching in February. So I coached for 20 years, several, thousands of kids. And I can tell you, it's funny how many players that I have coached, parents that I never met, that had parents that I never met. And it's because, obviously I know parents have commitments, like their work and stuff like that. It's hard for them, but I've had parents that I've never met because they couldn't be there for their kids. And that hurts. I grew up playing sports like you. I grew up playing sports, and my parents, I can remember on one hand how many times my parents were at my sporting events because they couldn't be there. And it affected me. I used to ride to practices and games with my other friends' parents because I didn't have a ride. And kids remember those things. Kids play on these in these sporting events, whether it's on the field or on the court, and they look up in the stands. They don't want to see all the fans. They want to see who's there to support them. That's who they're looking for. So it's important that we as parents do our best to put that stuff on the calendar, so that way we know we're making sure that we're making time for that stuff. So that's really good. Very, very important. I agree with you. When it comes to, kind of your celebrity status, I mean, there's a lot of things in media that your kids are older, that they may see or hear, maybe read. how do you and you know their mom, how do you guys protect them from those things?
Yeah, like going into this, like well, for one, I wasn't really like gun ho, with um, just reality TV. I just obviously I know how certain things can be construed
Right.
and portrayed and things like that. So I wasn't really for that. My wife, um, she worked on me for a while to decide to go ahead and move forward with it. And and I have some friends who've been on certain reality TV shows as well too, more on the professional end, like real estate related stuff or what have you. But when you go into something like this, you kind of know, but then when you're in it, it's like, wow, I had no idea, right? And so it was definitely a lot of things that you kind of had no idea that would happen. But I wanted to make sure though too, like when we talked to the children that you're going to get people no matter what you do in life that are going to be for you, and there's going to be some people who are going to be naysayers and just people who are just negative. Um, the reality and what we call haters, right? The reality is that the only way that you won't have haters in life if you do nothing,
Right.
right? Like if you do absolutely nothing in life, then you won't have it. So meaning to say that don't let other people, it's kind of like this, it's kind of like a story that I heard and I tell often. you know Human beings are like, they share a very similar characteristic to crabs. And like if you want to catch some crabs, you get a huge cage and you put some crab feed in and you lower it down in the ocean. And, crabs have this unique, ability to get through just about any trap or any kind of, reef, etc. And however, we still bring them out, by the tonnage. Why is that? Because they share a very similar characteristic. You put this crab feed in a cage and you lower it all the way down in the ocean. Next, a crab come in and another one comes in. And next thing you know, it's like a lot of crabs. It's like crab Thanksgiving up in there, right? And then there's no more food, but crab still keeps coming in. And then if one of them gets a bright idea and say, you know what, there's no reason for us to be here anymore. There's no food in here. Let me leave. Let me get out of here. And it starts to, climb out. And then the other crabs will knock that crab off the wall. And if the crab will persist, they will actually break the arm of that crab. And if it continues to persist after that, they will actually kill the crab by majority. And the next thing the cage is brung out of the pier and there's feeding time, right? So human beings a lot of times do the same thing, right? They will break the arm of your ambition or try to kill your dreams and things like that. And a lot of times it's because if you escape the trap, so to speak, you have proven that you can escape it, right? And you don't, that you don't have to no longer be in this cage or this box. And it's to say that there are going to be a lot of people that are to come, and specifically the more you grow, the more success that you come, and obviously being a public figure now, there are going to be a lot of crap-like mentalities. There are a lot of people who are going to be haters. A lot of people are going to say a lot of things. And the reality is that they really don't hate you. What it is that they hate themselves. They hate where they may be at in their current situation, et cetera, in their life. So they're just lashing out. Hurt people hurt people.
Right.
And so those are the conversations I had with them. I try to, let them know, like, don't go on those things. Obviously, they're getting older, so they have on social media feeds. But it initially did kind of hurt to say, like, man, like sometimes people don't realize you have a family. Like people will see these things that you're saying, these negative things, and which 99% of the time is not even true because they see a glimpse of your life. And so I, just kind of had to let them know, like, not to really look and engage, as I try not to look and engage myself, because it's really unfortunate, the society that we live in right now, especially the digital age, et cetera.
Right.
Because there's a lot of positives, there's also a lot of negatives, and we also see it in our school system as well too, where to a degree where people sometimes will even take their own lives because of just all of the hate that they may be receiving, and they feel like they can't take it anymore, and no longer want to be here. Which is why we have a high suicide rate, and which is why, unfortunately, sometimes kids will go to school with guns and all these different things. So I think like if we went back to like how I kind of grew up, and I think many of us, and probably the same with you, that there's a saying that if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything at all. I think we left that so long ago. But
Yeah.
maybe we can kind of go back to those things, and I think we'll be better as a society.
Yeah, I agree. I think that our kids face a lot of things through their lives, whether they have a parent that is in the public eye or not. There's so many different factors that play into who they are as people, and whether it's at school or out with their friends, they're going to encounter issues and challenges that come up, and how they either accept it or how they move past it and learn from it is what matters. And I think for us as parents, the more support that we can provide to our kids, the more guidance, the more love that we can show our kids, that's just going to kind of translate into who they are outside of the home as well. So I think it really comes down to who we are as parents and how we're raising our kids, and the love that we're showing them in the home. So that way, when they aren't around us, or they do see or hear things outside of the home, that they know how to handle it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, kind of dealing with, I think co-parenting in general, I've never experienced it. My wife and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. We've never experienced co-parenting.
Congratulations.
Thanks. But we are co-parenting, right? Even though we're married, we are co-parenting. For your kids tend to have a hard time when their parents split. How did you and their mom reassure them that kind of everything's going to be okay?
Yeah, it was a huge adjustment for them. I mean, even for myself, like you would come home and it's used to be, because I think now it's been 8 years now since I've been divorced. So they were even much younger, right? You're talking 9 years old, 4 years, So uh, yeah, so I think Yusuf would have been 6. My daughter was 9. Yeah, so coming home and it's quiet, right? It used to be very interactive and things like that. So, but I think that one is like, let them know that, they're not the cause of anything, right? That, that they're loved by both their mom and their dad, and also by their families, and that, just like reiterating that, because sometimes, as children, I never had to go through that myself, but I know other, friends that did, where parents didn't work out, that just kind of reiterating that, they're not, it wasn't them, wasn't their issue. And I think at that time too, it's kind of like, you have to show even more of an abundance of love. Like you just got to mention when it comes to, haters out there, you got to do the same thing with that, and try to like show more of abundance of love to them, more attention to them. Don't treat it like it's just a regular thing, and just give them a lot of time and with them. But and sometimes too, I think it might be. I know in our community it's a little taboo thing of like having a professional talk to them, but go to counseling sometimes and see where their mindset is and their mind space and things like that, and having those opportunities to be able to do that as well too. But I think their mother, does a lot with them. She's remarried, and they do things, and obviously on my end, we do a lot of stuff with traveling and just family stuff, and me and my wife and kids and stuff like that, and letting them know that God loved you so much that He gave you 2 sets, of parents now, and and just let's reiterating how much they're loved and admired and appreciated.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think continuing to show the love is important. I'm a big proponent of counseling. Counseling people can look at counseling as kind of this, kind of this taboo kind of deal. But yeah. Counseling is important, and it could be something that you may be going through personally. And for our kids, they go through a lot of stuff. They deal with a lot of stuff, especially through those teenage years. And maybe a counselor is the best move for them. My wife and I, just as married couple, I call her our marriage coach, but she's a licensed therapist. And we see this marriage coach once every couple months. We sit down with her and chat with her. Not because we have issues, but so we don't have issues.
I actually personally agree with everything. I not tell my wife, like, it's like a lot of times people look at it as a taboo thing. Like, you only go there when you're having issues.
Right.
Well, like, you go there so sometimes where there won't be any issue. It's just kind of like a check-in, to make sure everything's aligned. And it's just like when you take your car to get service, you don't wait for something bad to happen.
Right. Exactly.
Just get, some service here and there, kind of get fixed, so it won't be a huge thing like, oh, the alternator went out, so it's, I think that's really, really important. There is a book that I bought, on co-parenting, and it was so great. I ended up giving it to my ex-wife as well. Like, hey, you need to read this. And and because the reality is that if you look at, unfortunately, statistically speaking, like, half of marriages end in divorce, then a lot of people are facing the same issue when it comes to, having this blended family. And so it's really important that no matter how we may feel about each other any given day, that, the children comes first.
Right.
And we don't put them into any, issues or anything like that, but sometimes people may have issues with, the exes, and here, there sometimes you all are great friends, here. Then there's times where you might not be friends for a minute, but at the end of the day, the children shouldn't know any of that. Like, the children should come first, and they should be priority.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was saying too, as far as the counseling goes, yeah, that's something that's completely healthy, completely natural. And you never know, you might discover some things just through talking to somebody else, somebody outside the home. You might discover some things, whether it's with your child, you and your child, or you and your spouse. You might discover some things that you do need to work on that you didn't realize. But hearing it from a third party, it's helped me acknowledge some of the things that I need to work on as a husband and as a father. So yeah, it's super great. I highly recommend counseling. I've something that I live by. So, well, let me ask you this: your kids, talking about your kids going through these teenage years, they'll face challenges, as I said earlier. They'll face challenges and struggles themselves. How do you and your ex? How do you guys, as co-parents, how do you guys talk about those things together with your kids? Because sometimes that's a struggle too. I know a lot of divorced parents that, when their child's going through something, they may not necessarily tell the other parent. They'll try to keep it in their own home. But how do you guys work through those challenges that they may be facing as co-parents?
Yeah. Sometimes I may get a text message or, a call from, our children's mother, and to maybe saying like, hey, you need to talk to, usually it's useless, because it's more of a, male thing, about, certain matter, etc., or, things like that. But I that's usually how it kind of works. We have a little conversation, and then just I'm maybe just from a sales background, but I tend to I ask a lot of questions. Like, which is what, like, this right here is I won't say new, because I've done a lot of interviews, but I'm usually on the other side of it. I'm usually the one that's asking the questions, and versus doing a lot of the talking. And so, and I think when you do it, you get a chance to learn a lot. Like, I listen way more than I speak, even though I know, people think I lecture, right? But it's so funny. But yeah, I listen way more than I speak, because I'm always asking questions, and I think that's how you grow. That's how you learn. But also, that's how you get to know other people, and that's how you get to know, like, what's going on in your children's life, and kind of dig a little bit, and there's there's some really good ways that you can kind of go about and doing that without probing to the degree where they think like, oh, dang, stop asking, but it's so all those things. But we do kind of interact when it comes to certain things, like certain matters.
Yeah. I think it's important for parents to understand that just because you guys are split and living in two different homes doesn't mean that you guys can't communicate with each other effectively and efficiently when it comes to the sake of your kids. The bottom line is you have a common denominator, and that is you have these two kids together, you have a child together, and you have to work out whatever you have to work out, not only between yourselves, but with the issue that your child is facing as co-parents, because that's only going to help your child learn how to grow and develop and face challenges and get through them, knowing that they have the support of mom and dad, even though they're in two different homes. And I see that a lot with divorced parents, that they go through these struggles of not being able to communicate effectively. And the only person that's getting hurt in that situation is the child. Obviously, it's the child. And sometimes divorced parents, they just don't see it. They just don't want to see eye to eye on stuff. And I think what you just seeing and what I've seen now, obviously I'm an outside person, but seeing what I've seen on television and stuff, the way that you and your ex, their mom, the way that you guys communicate and handle situations is phenomenal. The way you guys handle it together, you guys act like grown adults as grown parents, that you guys handle things the way that you're supposed to. And it's only benefiting the kids. So hats off to you for doing that. I think you guys are doing a remarkable job at that. So I just want to acknowledge that.
No, there's a thank you. There's times where, indeed it can be tough, and as you mentioned, that, it's time sometimes, as long as you respect one another, right? Mm-hmm. It's time to put, egos and things like that to the side, and, it's like, it's all about the children, and they didn't ask to be here, right. You brought them to this world, and you have a responsibility and an obligation to try to give them the best life possible. And sometimes the best life isn't necessarily you all being together, but it could be you guys being separate, and you going your life and my life, but the best life is having the ability to be able to have a cohesive blended family and be able to co-parent very effectively together for them to have just receiving an abundance amount of love.
Yeah, absolutely. One last question, and then I'll let you go. When it comes to being a co-parent, having an ex, and then you're bringing in another partner to the relationship. I know parents that have gone through divorce that say, I'm not interested in dating or building a relationship with somebody else. I just want to focus on my kids. Some people think that they want to bring in another partner as quickly as possible and introduce them to their kids. How did that situation unfold for you and your ex? You said she's married now. So how did you guys manage that with your kids, like bringing in somebody else into the household? How did that conversation go? And how does it, do you obviously you find it okay, but what advice would you give to parents that may be kind of thinking about that?
Yeah. As far as myself, it was a huge challenge because, this is all new territory, never been, single with children, so that whole dynamic of when I was, meeting and talking to people and things like that, okay, when is it too early, right? And then when is it, too late? Because you don't want to be introducing, your children to a lot of people as you're starting to kind of weed people out and trying to figure out, if this is a serious thing, are we going to move further, this and that. And then it's like, you don't want to do it too late too, when you're very, very, very in love, whatever that may be. And next thing you know, that dynamic doesn't work out very well. So it is a balance that you have to work with my wife. One of the things that, I loved about her and I do love is that she's very family oriented, and I've seen the way that she interacts and has with her nephews and her nieces. And so that was something I was always, that I loved. I can, you can see that, you can witness that, because at one point I wanted to talk to somebody who actually had children, because I could see their motherly qualities, that they're a good mother and how they will be towards my children. And then I kind of got away from that to say I'm open to anybody. And, thank God I was that way, because, my wife came along and, but I seen how she interacted with her family. When I was there visiting her in Trinidad, it reminded me family back, my family back home, we all get together and just the interaction, having game nights and all these different things. And then the children, I say all the time, like I'm so blessed, like they, like they're really great kids,
Yeah.
really great, not just in school, but at home, their home life and the community and things that, they do and how they are. And I knew for the most part, like they would, and haven't seen me with somebody, I was talking to other people because I just really introduced them to anyone yet, because we wasn't at that point. But they wanted to see me married. They wanted to see me with somebody. They want to see, like dad happy and things like that. So I knew that, they wanted that as well. And so when I was able to introduce them to Shy and Shy to them, like it was instant magnetic. Even though they're both shy, Shy is very, very shy. When she meets someone for the first time, and the kids are, they're kind of shy as well. But they have a great dynamic in how they get along, and the love that they have for each other, and and stuff like that. So, and I see it continue to keep growing and growing, and so she's also very active, as well too, and going to games, and we just came back from a trip. She's like, hey, we gotta make sure we get the kids something, so she's always thinking about stuff like that as well too, cooking for them, all those different things. But it is a balance. I don't have an exact answer to say, oh, this is the perfect time to introduce. But I think when and and sometimes, even for her, she hears horror stories of people like who had children, and and they come into the mix and the kids treat them very bad, or this and that, so she didn't know what to expect either. She was pretty nervous, but I know she also believed that she's really blessed as well. So, but yeah, we're very fortunate.
Yeah. I think that's crucial. What you were talked about there is really finding somebody that has similar interests as you. And you talked about Shaida, just acknowledging, as I have a plane going overhead right now, acknowledging that through her own experiences in the family that she has back home and how close everybody was. And you have that same similar characteristic. You want to have a family that's close, and even with your ex-wife, you guys are super close, and that's important to you. So finding a partner that shares similar interests as you obviously is important, because ultimately they're going to be impacted by your kids.
Very much so. People say opposites attract. I really don't necessarily agree to that statement, because I think they may attract initially, but over, in any reasonable amount of time, it tend to not attract as much, because people are friends with other people because you guys are a lot alike. You guys like some of the same, similar things, same thing. The same thing with your spouse. Like, there's probably certain movies that you guys both like to watch, certain type of foods, certain books, whatever it may be, religion to, political, beliefs, whatever it is. Like, there's a lot of similarities. Obviously you're gonna have differences, but there's a lot of the similarities is what necessarily attracts you and what's kind of keeps the, things glued together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, listen, Bilal, thank you very much for joining me. If my listeners wanted to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, best place for them to do that.
Yeah, they can visit my Instagram, Bilal Hazziez. They can find me there. Also, my wife and I, we have our YouTube channel, Life of Shy and Bilal. So much more in depth of like just our lifestyle. We have our podcast as well on there as well. So if they want to be able to learn more about us, make sure they like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, and to get more information on us.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thank you again, brother, for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Give a lot of great information, and really just kind of sharing who you are as a person, not only as a businessman, but also as a dad. You're doing awesome. You represent the dad up community very well. So I appreciate you. I appreciate our friendship, and I'm looking forward to staying in touch with you, brother.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Bryan, for everything. I love what you're doing, man. There's a lot of positive, dads that are out there, so it's really great to be able for you to be able to put this on a platform, because sometimes we don't get to see it as often as we should. And so it's beautiful that you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much for saying that, man. It really means a lot. I appreciate it. Well, listen, everybody, thank you guys very much for joining me on another episode with my good friend, Bilal Hazziez. Thank him again for being on the show. And if you want to check out what he's doing, I'll make sure to drop the links in my bio. But make sure you guys are checking out what he's doing on Instagram, going to his YouTube, subscribing, all those things. You can check out what he's doing. He and his wife are now doing together. But thank you again, Bilal, for being on the show, brother. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode. Make sure you guys subscribe to my podcast and YouTube channel. And please do me a favor, leave a rating and a review. Would love to hear from you and see what you think of the show. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes each week. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Dad Up Podcast.